folks. Welcome inside the Parisi Palace, high above 3773 East Broadway. This is a live edition of the Jake Feinberg Show, coming on Power Talk. Please go to our website, powertalk.live. Download our free app to your smartphone so you can stream all of our live local programming, including Solomon on Blast, the Jim Parisi Show, and yours truly, the Jake Feinberg Show. Can't thank you enough for making us part of your day today, and without further ado, it is quite an honor to bring in a character who considers herself in her own words, a freelance guitarist, which in today's terminology is going to be an interesting point of view. Back in the 60s and 70s, she might have very well been a studio shark in the burgeoning studio scenes in Hollywood, doing jingles and commercials and soundtracks, and probably would be carrying around, banjos and 12 strings and dobros and all types. She would have been a jack of all trades, and maybe she's doing that today, but the paradigm of music is very different today because, at least in recording, much of music today is made in isolation and not amongst humanity. Anyway, she also was connected to a good friend of mine and a guy I dedicated my first book to, Neil Casal. So really excited to get down with her on many levels. Victoria Murdok, welcome to the Jake Feinberg Show.
Thanks for having me.
It's an honor to have you. I mean, what does a freelance guitarist look like in 2019?
Well, that's a good question. Basically, it's going to just anyone who's doing a session for like a show, like a show tune, or like it's kind of anything. It's kind of anything that like whatever you need, I can do it. Like what do you need, kind of thing. But it's not the like you said, it's not really like sort of. It's a very it's a lot more isolationist nowadays, for sure, than what I sort of hoped it would be, or envisioned it being.
I mean, have you had a chance to, talk to any of the studio sharks that were around before we were birthed? I mean, I was born in '78, but I mean,
yeah.
I mean, like it's almost unfathomable when you look back at a time when, most of the cats. Again, it wasn't hundreds; it was several dozens. But I mean, so it was not cutthroat, but there was a lot of work to go around. But I mean, those cats would be coming into the studio before the sun came up, and they'd leave after the sun went down, and they'd be doing all types of different music, and so many bands came out of that as well. And I just wonder about, I mean, when somebody calls Victoria Murdok, I mean, I don't know. Anyway, my point is that a lot of those cats that were touched by that paradigm, now they get called up. Keyboardist, let's say, will come in and he'll plug in, he'll put his keyboard down, he'll play his part. They'll say, "Great, we're done. Here's your money. Have a nice day." It's anonymous, and I wonder what it is in your musical paradigm. It doesn't have to be how you make money, but what keeps you going in music? Because that, to me, strikes at a lack of intimacy. And music, truly spiritual music, is all about intimacy.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you. It's not the easiest sort of place to navigate, since you're kind of now more than ever, like you have all these sort of tools, marketing tools at your fingertips, so you kind of have to involve yourself in that aspect of it to like sort of put yourself out there. And that's fine. I don't really have too much of an issue with that, as long as sort of I can maintain like a balance and kind of like a healthy like balance of like, okay, here I am, sort of presenting myself online. Because I've gotten called for sessions just because, and I've actually built meaningful relationships with people because,
Right.
A friend of mine saw me on Facebook with a cool guitar, and I didn't even know who this person was. He's like,
Yeah.
we're looking for a female guitar player for this thing, and I see you with all these cool guitars. Like, so can you play them?
I love that.
I'm like, oh well, I sure hope I can.
Yeah.
But yeah, and so from there on, it was like a 2-year relationship to that, like, working, sort of studio world that I was introduced to from my friend Rob. His name is Rob Campanella, and it's just some really, really great people that I've met who also knows Neil, who's done many sessions. They've done many sessions together.
I mean, this is important because it's not about. I mean, like everybody. I mean, not everybody, but you have to do gigs so you can, so you're not starving to death. But I mean, like what I've always, since we connected, I was like, I wonder where Victoria goes just to get stuff out of her system. Like so many of the cats that I've interviewed, like Chuck Rainey or all these heavy guys. I mean, when they first came to New York, there was an older crew that was doing all the studio work. So they were scrapping and clawing for every gig. They'd play free. They'd play on the street. I mean, I look at you and I say, there's no way. I mean, setting aside what you do to sing for your supper, where's Victoria Murdok just playing your truth, where you can just be who you are and play,
Wow. Well, I find it pretty difficult there's just there's so many musicians or, people who do music who aren't musicians. There's so much to sift through that I think that finding sort of the right avenue for that to happen, to be able to get stuff out and to be able to cathartically sort of release, which is why I started to play music, in the first place. Just to, sort of have that happen is really, it can be hard to find people to do that with. I definitely don't sort of count on that as, the experience that's going to happen, when I go and when I get called for something. I definitely don't have any sort of delusion that, it's going to be super satisfying, like release of blockage or, whatever.
No, absolutely. No, I'm just talking about because your presence is fascinating. I mean, I just saw you as a freelance guitar player, which I found to be a really interesting, I really get off on the cats who can play all different types of music. But I mean, a lot of times, my show started, 8 years ago, and I created something out of nothing. I mean, there was nothing here. It was just self-generated. So that's kind of what I'm getting at, is clearly looking for this spiritual fusing of spiritualism and music, with people. That's never going to happen with a studio gig, especially with people you've never met before. No. So I mean, can you talk about a time where you've created something in order to feed yourself spiritually?
Well, I'll tell you what. So, I was just in this. I just sort of made this band.
Yeah.
They're called Kokomo. Unfortunately, I had to leave because that's kind of what I thought it would be, was something like that, like an expressive sort of avenue where I could just okay, pressure's off. Just who cares? Let's just do something that can sort of reconnect us to our love of music. And that's going to, I feel like human beings are like these sort of little amplifiers, and we can choose to amplify certain feelings, right? And then if a bunch of people or a bunch of musicians come together and have sort of that intention to create look, we're just going to come here and we're going to play songs because we love to play songs, and we're going to sort of put that intention behind it. People know. People can sense it, and they stop for a second, and they look, and they're just like, okay. They can feel something. You know, it's like a little vortex opens up, and you know, it's like you've gone to the spa or something after.
No, I mean, but you started a band, and then you left.
Mm-hmm.
Why did you leave?
I left because people started to get a little bit too sort of control-y, I guess, with decisions.
Yep.
And I very much didn't want that to happen. I just wanted a place, you know, where everyone was like, okay, well, let's see where it goes. I just want to see I want to have the opportunity to see where something goes instead of trying to make it fit into something. Because it's kind of exhausting, and also it's more authentic, I think, you know, when something kind of, when you're just there sort of breathing life into something that's already there, you know, with other people.
I mean, the intention of Kokomo was to play original tunes?
No, the intention was to do covers, but to kind of do it in a way, so there was no restrictions on what we would be, you know, it was basically like a free-form cover band.
Mm-hmm.
Where, excuse me, I'm getting caught in mouth. Wait. Okay.
No, because I mean, the meters before they were the meters. I mean, they used to on Bourbon Street. They would take a Stephen Stills tune and, you know, like turn it inside out. I mean, you know, to me, it's there's nothing.
Yep.
I don't want to go see a cover band and necessarily have to hear it note for note. I mean, you were going to try to turn those tunes into your own kind of thing.
Yeah, totally. And, you know, it's and I figured, okay, look, there's 3 girls. There's me and 2 other girls who I love dearly. Like, they're wonderful people.
Mm-hmm.
But I was just asking myself, okay, look, if we have the whole sort of musical web and spectrum as what we can possibly, you know, for songs that we can possibly play, like, there's definitely going to be a lot of songs that everyone loves, you know, sort of all together, and those are the ones that work, you know, the best. And it's, you know, it's only 3 people. It's not like you're trying to convince like 5 people of, okay, you know, trying to get them on the same page. But they just come from a different place musically, which can be cool. It can totally be amazing, and I think it made the songs that we did really well. But in the end, we just couldn't. The divide just seemed a little bit too great.
Right. That's what I mean. You know. Like, I just feel, my gut tells me that you're a total street scholar as it relates to music. Is that true, or have you come out, or did you come out of the academy?
No, I went to LA Music Academy.
You went to, okay, so what was that, in high school, or is that a college?
No, it's a college. It's a trade school.
Mm-hmm.
That's
I dig.
in Pasadena. Yeah, I think now it's actually called LA College of Music, but whatever.
No, so that sounds a lot different than Cal Arts or Berkeley, and so I want to know, like, I mean, because you strike me, without ever seeing you play or sing, you strike me as somebody who is a total street scholar, meaning that you've sort of, you know, there's so much, we're saturated with material today, but it seems like Victoria Murdok has just kind of gone off the grid in terms of finding your own sound, you know, searching for your own chords. I mean, if you think back to that time, and I don't want to bag so much on academia, but I do think to codify a language like blues or jazz is a little bit naive. It's a money-making proposition. You can't really teach. I don't think you can learn or expand or increase vocabulary in academia. So when you look back on your time there, what is the one thing? I'm talking more like in a live setting. I don't know how often you play live, but I mean, when what is one thing that you can say you honestly can take from the LA Music Academy that you can apply to live performance?
Well, I'll tell you what. The one thing that just comes to mind that's been really valuable is to be able to sort of phrase whatever idea. Like, so if you study, jazz phrasing or like blues phrasing or just different phrasing in sort of that condensed period of time, you start to understand what makes up a phrase in general. Just like what is it, and that being able to sound like music and not necessarily have it be jazz or blues, because I think it's a lot more fluid than that. I agree with you. I love like genre true music.
Mm-hmm.
But I like stuff that's a little bit challenging, but that seems like a complete idea.
I love it. No, it's a blending. You don't need to be playing the Great American Songbook. There can be an inflection point here that strikes of jazz or blues, but I mean, ultimately, if you're crafting, and that, I mean, I really want you to. I mean, have you perform? Anyway, I want you. I don't want. You can finish the question if you want. I mean, what is the thing you learn the most that you can honestly take on the bandstand? Because here's the thing: like back in 40 years ago, cats were going to Berkeley and they were having lessons, but at the same time, they were playing like they were playing gigs. I mean, they were getting so confident on the bandstand in school. Mm-hmm. And now those sessions, those jam sessions, are taking place in the school cafeteria, which is cool, but it's not. So weird. Yeah. I mean, it's not. I mean, it's also very wonkish too. Like you don't have the, because I don't need to tell you this, but I mean, you get cats coming from all over the world now to come. They pay a lot of money to get a degree. But they play with each other. They don't play with the cats with the rubber bands around their horns on the streets. Like that's where the blues comes in. I mean, I just feel like you're somebody who's somehow, some way. I guess Neely's spirit is inside of me, but you are a gap sealer between the academy and the street. And I mean, I'm just saying, like that's where if you're not doing it already, that's what you need to be doing.
To be a sort of true to a genre, just because I grew up. My dad's a jazz drummer, so I grew up on jazz. So I already had sort of this developed ear for improvisational music.
Are you kidding me? What's his name?
His name is David Murdok. He doesn't play professionally anymore. Now he's an architect, but that's how he paid his way through school.
Dude, that is so badass. He was swinging, playing. He was swinging on the drum. So he had you on his lap, just playing drum. I mean, that is so. That is so badass. I mean, it's just so great. Anyway, so continue.
Yeah, just listening to Miles Davis,
right.
I had to discover, the Beatles and the Rolling Stones and all this sort of essential things that maybe more people might listen to. He wasn't exposing
you to the pop rock stuff. He was well, actually, I mean, those guys were trendsetters, but yeah, I mean, if you're listening to bebop or post bop, I mean, there's just something about the I don't know. I mean, I am not a professional musician, but I just, there's this, like, when you listen to the rhythm section especially, it just feels like you're floating on air, and you don't feel that way with other genres of music. So you're kind of, and you're kind of blessed to have that. So he, continue on, please. I didn't mean to break you off there.
No, yeah. So it's fine. So I had my dad, and then I had my brother, who I have three older brothers, but one in particular that I'm very lucky to have sort of had as like a musical shepherd.
Oh, wonderful.
He exposed me when I was very young to stuff like Can,
Yeah.
And stuff like, I was like 13, I think, when I heard, Tago Mago.
Very progressive, very progressive stuff.
But I couldn't believe it. I was like, oh my God, these grooves are just so insane. And there was just sort of such like a different landscape where there's still this sort of free spirit of like the songs just keep going, maybe for 20 minutes, but it will hypnotize you. Yeah. And you can just sit there and follow it and sort of fall into this trance. And then I would go, to the kitchen and hear, Coltrane or something. So
it's ridiculous. I mean, that house was just full of odd rhythms, and people were. I mean, I would have been dancing all through the house. It's unbelievable.
No, it was very rich. It was a very rich musical upbringing. That's hands down.
But I mean, even so, you're coming onto this. The lineage of your family musically runs extremely deep, and your dad turned towards architecture that's what he does now. But I mean, were your parents specifically, or your dad, supportive of Victoria Murdok pursuing a career in music, or were they like, you're out of your mind?
Well, I think that they wanted to. In the beginning, I think they wanted to come off as supportive, like verbally, but there was just sort of this feeling. It didn't feel like they were definitely freaked out about it. Okay. I feel, and I don't know whether it's because I'm like the only girl in the family and the only one who decided to sort of pursue the path of music, or why that is, but I think that they did their best to sort of try and support. But it's not easy. I mean, I think.
Well, they do. I mean, listen, I have two young daughters, and I mean, I love them, and they're both musically inclined, but you don't want your kid to get hurt. I mean, like let down. You want them to be. I mean, that's as a parent. They don't. Even though your dad, back in the day, was burning and just playing to the heavens and making $5 a night or whatever. It was like that was what it was all about. That was feeding him. So he knows that's what's ironic is that burning quality is inside of you. So how you can't ignore that, and you have to move forward with that. No. It's almost like when I talk to cats like yourself, a lot of times you get to a point where when you actually start making it a livelihood, then they're like totally proud of you. They're like blown away by it. I know. Right? But there's this long credibility gap in there before they're like, well, she's whatever. I mean, I have full faith and confidence that you well, I mean, like right now, I mean, are you like traveling up and down the coast for gigs? Like how I mean, you don't have a ton of content out there. And I mean, as far as like live performances is concerned, and I don't know if you get credits as an accompanist, but I mean, like how much work do you have right now?
Well, okay, so this is kind of an interesting time because about 5 years ago, I had an injury that wasn't really a physical injury; it was just due to guitar playing, where I had this nerve damage, kind of like carpal tunnel, but it was never really properly diagnosed. I've seen all kinds of doctors for it. The only thing that I've found, and when I'm saying an injury, I'm saying like when I would play and sort of get lost in the music and sort of let it get to a certain point, my hand would just, stop working.
Wow.
that was a very, very sort of scary time because I had no idea what this was my whole life. You know, it's everything that I've been working for, and it's really like I just really love music. Like, if music didn't help me in life to like do the normal life things, I wouldn't do it.
Right. Oh, I dig.
It's too hard to do if it doesn't sort of give you a relief or release. You know.
I mean, you're on fire right now. So I mean, did you? It's funny before you go on because the great drummer Joe Russo, he was talking about we didn't go into detail about it, but he was facing these incredible shoulder problems. Again, not an injury per se, but again, as a drummer, and he was just like, I think I'm going to have to hang this up, and I think that's what the scary part is. Now, what kind of healing practices did you seek for your hand?
I mean, so many. The thing that I've actually started doing very seriously is the Alexander technique.
Why don't you talk to the cats about what is that? I don't know what that is.
So it's a sort of postural integration technique that restores like the functional movement of muscles and sort of retrains your body. That's designed for actors and musicians. I think it's been around since the 30s. And it's incredible. However, I'm now having to relearn how to play guitar.
I understand. I think it's two of my heroes. One of them is still doing his thing. One of them is passed, but I mean, for completely different reasons. I mean, Pat Martino and Jerry Garcia both went into comas, and then when they came out, they had no understanding of how to play the guitar, and yet, Pat Martino's walking around with, jazz guitarist of the year. He was having, again, he had a tumor in his head. So, and then at that time in the 70s, they just assumed he was depressed. So, I mean, they had him in locked wards doing electric shock therapy. It's insane. So you know this story. So it's like,
insane.
It took 7 years for him to get back on the bandstand. But in some ways, it's like,
very difficult.
This is a blank slate. I mean, thank God you don't have any serious neurological damage. It's like you're going to develop a different kind of style and different tone and sound on the guitar. And I think that is going to take a lot of work, but it's also pretty exciting because you're not going to sound like anyone but yourself.
Exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's totally exciting, actually. I was really bummed on it for a while.
Yeah, I don't blame you.
Honest.
I mean, dude, I can only imagine how bummed. I mean, and then all of a sudden it's like, okay, either I can feel sorry for myself or I'm going to, actually really be vulnerable and go out and do something completely different.
So, every time I would sort of come up against any adversity, I mean, this is the biggest one for sure, bar none. But, is do I love music enough? Is this real? Like, is this real? And then I would just kind of listen and wait, and it's like, yeah, actually, it's just music. I love it so much. There's sort of nothing like it for me. And also, would I be doing this anyways? Like, say I leave it, right, professionally or whatever, would I still be doing this? Yes, I would still be doing this. Okay, so it's real. I mean, I think also, curiosity about being able to experience yourself, which I think ultimately that's what music is you're a kid and and you're listening to something and something really strikes you. That's kind of an experience of your own inner self coming out.
Absolutely.
And making it known. making itself known to you in a very profound way. And I don't think that's really thought of in that way, but I think if you break it down, that's sort of what's happening. And I'm kind of doing that all over again with a completely different sort of dimension of, okay, how am I going to approach this? Just completely differently. And it's exciting. And I'm curious to see where it's going to end up.
How long have you been, retooling your, how long have you been working on your new style, timbre, tone, like when you felt like you finally got...
Well, it's pretty early because I sort of just started the training and just got sort of free enough in my own body to where I could do it. But basically it's been 9 weeks. 9 weeks.
Wow, the spirit connected us, Victoria. I'm so proud of you.
Yeah, thank you.
Really,
yeah, I'm happy.
because like most of my show focuses on the 4 L's, and one of them is life, and it's about overcoming life, meaning overcoming adversity, and truthfully, you will look back on this time and recognize that that it'll be a long road. It's not going to be tomorrow, but it's going to make you a stronger, not just a player, but constitutionally a stronger person. And I am so proud of you that you have forged ahead on the insecure path, because there is no roadmap for what you're doing.
No, you just got to listen. You got to tune in, really, and listen to, what's right for you, where's the right way. And when you find there is a right way for, the individual, and I think when you can sort of tune into that, stuff clicks in a way that it's not going anywhere. I
don't even know if there's a right or a wrong way. It's your way. I think that...
No, for the individual. Yeah, for the individual.
Exactly.
Like, my way is not for anyone else, but there definitely is a right way for me.
Right,
like mechanically and sort of spiritually intertwined, connected.
Are you getting a different sound out of your apparatus now?
Yeah, it's totally different.
Holy cow.
It's totally
Holy,
different.
see, this is a blessing in disguise.
Yeah, I think about it, and I'm just like, it's so much more. It's so much lighter and so much. It's like a different person. It's crazy, but
Wow.
It's sort of lighter, ethereal. Even when I'm playing or attempting to do sort of well-defined phrases and lines, there's just like this really light quality to it that's resonant, and I was definitely pretty heavy-handed before.
So you were playing,
like
and
very influenced.
And would you
by
say that?
Funk and,
yeah. So like you were, so it was very heavy, and did the music reflect that too? Was it there not a lot of dynamics? It was very hard.
No, there was dynamics. It was just more of a.
You were like, would you say that like it was just you were a shredder before, and now you're looking at yourself as a little
No.
bit. You're saying like, okay, so explain it's more of like a timbre or a tone kind of thing. That's
Yeah, it's more of a tone. It was very direct. Like what I was playing was very direct, and like you knew what it was that I kind of made sure that. In my own, at least in my own sort of intention, I made sure that I had developed lines and like delivered them, and it was like kind of like a little bit forceful about it, honestly, but not in the way that it sounded. I wanted to cut through.
Sure.
Basically.
Sure.
Like that was my mindset
right.
before. Is I wanted to cut through nonsense. I just wanted to cut through and just not to like overpower or anything, but just to have give direction and sort of create direction.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's your life. Listen, you don't have to play like, if you play assertively, your life force will help cut through. If you have that life force, you'll cut through.
Exactly. Yeah. And now it's a little bit more of like an enveloping sort of soundscapey, developing kind of like a soundscapey thing.
Wow. So tripped out. It's so tripped out.
Very much into Fripp and Eno.
Sure.
A little bit, kind of like that.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I'll try to hip you to some. You might know it, or I mean, I'll send you some stuff that you might really get off on. I mean, we have a game on this program called Name That Voice. I don't expect you to know who this is, but I do want you to pay attention to the content, and then we'll come back and break it down.
That's a good one. I love that.
You got in 3 minutes.
Well,
in 3 minutes.
Okay. Well, love to me is what makes everything go around. I think that love created the universe. I think that if you say you do not believe in God, you're an atheist or whatever. I respect that. I think we all need to respect how each other feels about things in life. But for you to say that you don't believe in God, and if you have a little daughter or a little son, and you look in their eyes, you can't tell me that you don't believe in love. Mm-hmm. And to me, God is love. So I don't think I need to go any further with that as far as that's concerned. And mm-hmm. I also believe that and especially at this time in the world, what's going on out there in the world, it's just insane. And we need to hold on to love. We need to hold on to what love is. We need to realize that there's a heavy struggle going on in the world, and I don't think any of us really understand. We don't understand it like we should. But I know one thing for sure, that this world needs love. It always did. Jackie DeShannon said it. What the world needs now is love. Mm-hmm. That song still makes me cry when I hear it.
I appreciate you sitting through that. That was a drummer that I'm not sure if you've ever crossed paths with. Do you know Jim Keltner?
I don't. No, I'm not familiar.
Okay, your dad will know who he is. Keltner is one of the most recorded studio drummers in the history of the world, and a beautiful cat. But the reason I played you that is because I want you to, as you're evolving now with this more ethereal, ambient saturation of sound in your new guitar, do you have trepidation about getting called for sessions now because people are expecting a certain Victoria Murdok and you know that you're evolving into a different life now? And I want you to talk about, because I know your love you will adapt to that. But is there trepidation on your mind, and have you gotten back in the studio since your newfound truth?
I think if it doesn't feel right for me, and I use the word feel like, I'm in a way that how do I phrase this? Okay, so I think that the people who I've worked with know that I have sort of a lot of different musical sort of tastes and things that I draw from. So I'm not necessarily concerned about, that's not really the concern for me. I feel like I can adapt what I'm doing now to most any situation. but the concern is that I don't want to be told, like, I don't want to sort of spend my musical credits. Now that's kind of like how I'm looking at it, just because I've run into this sort of this injury, and I look at, like, okay, well, what did I spend my credits on? What happened? Like, what led me to this? And I think that a lot has to do with, tension from not being true to, saying yes to everything, which I think people, you're kind of like expected to do because, okay, you're a musician, you're like doing what you want to do, right? So do this now.
Right.
Which I would do. I'm like, okay, fine. Like, well, tell me what you want and I'll do it. But I don't think that's not right. At least for me right now at this point, it's definitely not right. And I think sort of to take a more collaborative approach, and just to see, like, I don't know, I feel like I have enough confidence in my musicality that I'm like willing to like wait and see and listen and like not have to have pressure to like try and make something, because and I feel like I've said that before, but it's really true. Like, when you put a lot of pressure on something that's so delicate, like music, like what music is basically, if you kind of try and put it in a box and present it to people, it's just going to sound like pretty, at least to me, it's just going to sound pretty lame.
Yeah,
I feel like
you're darn right about that. So, I mean, basically what I'm hearing is that, and you articulated that really well. What I'm hearing is you're tired of taking cues from other cats, and it's kind of I mean, it's like, well, I want to be very clear about your credits. I mean, you're on a path. People are beset by barriers and walls and things like that. But let me tell you, my friend. I mean, you have years and years of productive, original, creative music ahead of you, and I think that's the key, is to sort of wean yourself off of the relentless need to. And again, I mean, don't get me wrong, I love cover tunes and I get off on them, but I think your own original music will provide a gateway towards expanded consciousness, new musical vocabulary, and most importantly, real people that you can surround yourself with that are on the that are operating on the same frequency. And I say that because music has cumulative effects. I mean, what you do, I mean, you know that. So it's gonna go on forever. It never ends. But we live in this time now where we're fully interconnected, and we are in a rush to go nowhere. We're all going to get to the same place, whether we run or walk. So the key is to take your time and go towards original music. And that in itself is a whole new ballgame, because then you're like, well, I don't know, but yeah, enough of the formula, I mean, you are at the precipice, which actually is interesting because our mutual friend, the late, great Neil Casal, very much had a similar situation happen to him because he had a whole career. He had this whole career before he had his career. It's like he had this whole singer-songwriter career that he was overly critical of and only now has been released since his passing. But then all of a sudden it was like, he got tapped into the jam band scene, and this is the thing, and this is what I want you to think about, and because it's got to happen organically. But the first thing, I mean, the first thing that happened, not the first thing, but one of them was Bill Kreutzmann's son Justin came to him and said, Neil, we need this intermission music for the 50th anniversary Grateful Dead shows. I mean, these are the interludes for the dead.
I heard about that.
Right,
that.
and so, but this is the key point is that he
Yeah.
is that when he got the call, he's like, well, how, he's like, he added up the amount of hours, and it would be 5 hours worth of music, and Justin's like, yeah, we need it next week, and it's like he had no time to think. He had to throw himself, and he had it. Like I said, he had Adam McDougall, Dan Horn. He didn't ever. I mean, some of these guys hadn't even played together, but he had guys that were operating on the same frequency, and they had no time to think, and they had to throw themselves over the ledge. And the next thing you know, that was the most popular thing out of all those Dead. I mean, the Dead shows were probably great. I didn't go to them; they were probably phenomenal. But the most surprised. I mean, he walked into that first gig in Santa Clara, basically saying, I hope this volume is low. I hope nobody hears it, and I can just move on. And the next thing you know, his phone is on fire. and people are like, there was a scene in Santa Clara where Neil's just dancing to the music, and some guy looks at him, he's like, boy, you're really enjoying this stuff. And Neil's like, this is going to blow your mind, but, I put this together. The point is, he had he had people that he trusted working with him. He had no time to think, and he threw himself over the ledge. And nobody can truly explain or understand why people do what they do. But I would just say that, like, on your path now that you are, you seem to recognize that, you are trying to you're adjusting your palette, you're changing your whole thing is sort of, it's kind of, you still have use of your hand. It's not like, you had and so I would go for the most spontaneous. I mean, you don't want to just throw yourself in with people you don't know, but instead of great friends or people that you've played with before, it's kind of like, that's all I'm saying. You don't have to listen to anything I'm saying, but all I know is that Neil, and I don't think he could ever truly see it himself, but he got to where he was because he was getting calls from Phil Lesh and from all these people that he didn't think he had any business being with musically, but they wanted him to play because, just like you, it's that life force. It's cutting through the morass. It's cutting through. It's not about facility or chops or technique. It's about feel.
No, none of it. Yeah.
No, it's about cutting through. And that's where you're at right now. You're right there. And that for Neil was 2012. So it's pretty daunting. It's daunting, but it's also does that resonate with you, that pep talk at all?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, when I heard that Neil had passed, I could not believe it. But one of the things, among the many things that were just sort of like racing in my mind, just because, for me, every time I would see him, it was like a respite. It was like a social respite. Like, just, okay, like, Neil's here. Like, I'm going to go hang out with him.
Right, exactly. No, you can just melt. You can just be yourself.
Like, okay, finally, like, somebody who's here, who's definitely present. Like, no questions.
Absolutely.
But so the thing that I thought that I sort of had in me was right when I met Neil. I just couldn't believe how much I related to working example of what I wanted sort of for myself. As sort of like I know someone and we're friends, and like that's what he's doing, and the sort of way that he's doing it, that way like works for me, he had a very specific sort of special to him approach that I just really, really resonated with, and it's so interesting that you're bringing this up. because it's almost like your most recent sort of profound thoughts are like immediately mirrored back to you by a complete stranger.
Yep. I mean, some people. Yeah. I mean, they're.
After an interview,
yeah.
Like, wow.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Well, I'm getting. I mean, I'll tell you the telepathic. I mean, I am not a prophet, but there is something sort of it's all feel. I mean, it's all you don't. Nothing is that far apart, truly. Even though, we have so much deception going on, and things like that can make you think that we're so far removed. But yeah, I mean, the aesthetic and the is there a way to define the essence that he was channeling that you strive to get to in your own career? I mean, how did you meet him? Did you meet him in the studio? Did you meet him on
Yeah, I met him. I met him in the studio.
Wow.
He was working on Rachel Dean's record.
Oh yeah, dude! I just got hip to Rachel through the most badass farewell concert for Neil at the Regent, and I lost my mind there. I was there. I mean, it was Dan Horn was on fire, Mapache, all my P. I love all these cats. I mean, these are like my.
I know. I wish I was there.
You were not there, right? I mean, you missed.
No, I had a gig that night.
You had a gig. Okay, you had a gig. No, but I mean, so you were working on Rachel's album, and continue. You met, and Neil was in the studio.
Yeah. So okay. So they were recording at Rob Campanella's house, and I'd sort of been helping him in the studio for, I don't know. I think it was about a year at that point. And Rachel Dean was there, and I met Neil. I can't remember the exact sort of day and time, like the time that I met him,
That's
but
all
I just remember listening, and because like you meet someone and you're just like, all right, like I don't know, I meet so many people, but then I heard him play and I was like, wait, something really caught my ear, like his musicality and his sort of honesty in his approach was really apparent, like crystal, like just right there,
right?
Right. And then I sort of did like a wait, what? Like a double take, And I was like, wait, who are you? Tell me all about yourself. Like what? I know. I almost felt like, okay, I just wanted to say, when he was done with, whatever solo he was recording, I can't remember what track it was, but I almost wanted to be like, yeah, I understand.
Right. You felt it. He was. I mean, it's a language, and he was talking, and you said, man, this is a guy who he's got his walls down. He's talking. He's talking my language.
So open, and I hadn't really experienced that from any of the. I can't think of not one other musician who kind of had that open, genuinely open, honest quality of like really like wondering and like really listening and really curious about what's happening, inside and outside,
When you say you were helping out, I mean, were you playing guitar too, or were you on the session as well?
I wasn't on that session. I was basically, at the time, I was 21 or 22. I can't remember. And I would go and like play guitar on some sessions and help, like restring guitars. But basically, I was just trying to be around.
I dig.
as much as possible and do whatever needed to be done in order to learn what I needed to learn,
Did he talk to you about, were you able to basically express to him that you thought that you wanted to sort of, that you appreciated his authenticity, and did he have any, or is there something that sticks with you that he's either expressed to you, musically or verbally, like in your hangs? Well,
it's for me, it's kind of difficult to approach that directly because I just wouldn't know how to say sort of, you know, I mean, I've definitely expressed to him before how I felt about his playing, for sure. But, you know, we're like friends, so I didn't want to be like fangirl.
Of course, no. But I mean, being friends with Neil means like, I mean,
Yeah.
I was not. I feel so liberated because if I was really close with Neil, I mean, it would be a devastating loss. I only really got close. I only met him last year for the first time, and then I couldn't figure out this year why I kept going on circles around the Sun Tour, and like I was like, why am I traveling the country to hang? You know, and like Neil would always get me passes, and we'd hang backstage, and he was complaining about his amps all the time, and like, you know, just all this stuff, like, you know, but he was genuinely like, I was like, why am I doing this? And now I know because part of my job is to continue to keep his spirit alive, and so you know, to me, once you become friends with him, he's gonna take an interest in your musicality. So what did he talk to you about with your own musicality? Like was there anything prescient that he said to you about the direction you should take your music, you know, regardless of before the injury or after?
Right. Well, I honestly never really asked him. I just felt like all the information that I was getting indirectly,
Right.
like just by watching,
Beautiful.
was so much information, and so sometimes I think the more someone talks about something and tries to articulate, the essence kind of gets lost, and the essence was sort of so clear and undiluted for me, the direction that I was observing in him, that was enough for me. Statements
just seemed vain at last. There was no reason for verbal communication. It was very evident. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, especially about something like that, you know, because I think, you know, if I were to apply, you know, some more of what I saw that I perceived that he was sort of applying for himself, it would just come out in a completely different way.
Absolutely.
It would look different, and that's when you know that, you know, the essence has been distilled, is when it can be applied to different people and they can have their own sort of self-expression and have it come out completely unique, but there's a certain essence there.
Jesus. Holy cow. That was the most powerful. I mean, you better trade. That was poetry right there. Unreal. That's it. I mean, yeah, you know, I mean, oh man. I mean, so what is the rest of the calendar year looking like for Victoria Murdok? I mean, I understand you're still, you know, acclimating to this reality and things like that. But I mean, do you have gigs coming up? Are you going to play live gigs? Like, I really want to come see you play live, and I'd really want you to come see you play original music.
Yeah, well, as of right now, since I just left the project that I was doing, there's nothing scheduled, but definitely soon. There will definitely be something very soon. I just have a feeling that I'm going to, you know, something's going to happen. Something's been happening, this sort of slow shift over time.
Yeah.
That feels like it's kind of coming into an opening out into the world, you know, into the sort of physical world.
Well, I can
get very metaphysical.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's my entire show is accessing the multidimensional self. So, I mean, you're talking to the right cat. But I'm
literally on my way to the Esalen Institute right now. So.
What institute is it called?
It's sort of a spiritual.
How do you spell it, though?
ESALEN.
Holy cow! I can't believe.
Yeah,
No. I can't believe you just brought that up. for a variety. Yeah. It's not going to make a lot of sense to you. I will send you this interview I did with the shaman musician Roger Kellaway, and he just it's been around for a while, right?
Yeah, it's been around since the 60s.
So anyway,
It's part of the whole like human potential movement and all that.
Now I'm going to send you this interview on YouTube that I did, and I'm going to tell you the exact time to cue it up and listen to this, because you will be dying of laughter. We are obviously this is such a I just was going to say, even if you have nothing planned, like I said before, I mean, I've done 1,500 interviews. I've tracked all these cats down, all these beautiful people, and I would love to get together with you, even just to do a Facebook Live interview with you and create content, even if you don't have any gigs coming up, so that you can you really, get yourself out to the world. Because once you access that, and that's what's a little bit disheartening about Neil's situation, is that I always found that even in the midst of him being such a giver, I think you used that word earlier about yourself. You were giving and giving and giving and giving and giving, and eventually Neil never left enough room for himself, and he drowned.
Oh.
And it's just, you need to take time. You need to. But I think that this center that you went to, that I cannot believe Roger Kellaway went to as well. After you you pass this Rubicon, this consciousness Rubicon, you're already kind of there. All of a sudden, this fearlessness takes over, and you really can lock into being your truth, and that's the only reason why, I'm bummed out that Neil did what he did, because he was definitely a focal point for me as a rogue journalist. He was a focal point of somebody that I was looking at to inspire younger cats. And now I realize that my whole mission, what he's telling me, is I have to push my peers and younger cats out of their comfort zone into new territory, so that they can grow and be as authentic as you felt when you saw him play at that session one day, whether it's on the bandstand or not. And so, I'm so humbled to know you. I'm so blessed that you took the time today, and let's just keep collaborating. Let's try to find a time in the future. I'm out in LA. Are you down in LA? Where is that where you live?
Yeah, I'm down in LA most of the time, between LA and Big Sur.
It's not a bad place to live, but I mean, you're clearly steeped in Coltrane and Mingus and Miles. I mean, obviously you're burning. So I mean, let's keep it happening. It was just, I had a ball. We just went for 65 minutes.
Amazing. Yeah. Happy to do it. Happy to do this. Very good to meet you, and thanks for reaching out.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Absolutely, Victoria. I had a ball. And, let's stay in touch. I'll have this up later, and probably transcribing some of the prescient stuff. But I'm going to send you this interview with Roger Kellaway. I think it's the same institute. And if you listen to the story that he tells about what he had to deal with after, as it relates to Barbra Streisand, you're going to be cracking up. I can't believe, I mean, just go and liberate yourself and get across the Rubicon. You're already there, but I mean, anyway, keep burning, Victoria, and
all right.
Love always.
Yeah, thank you so much. Right back at you.
All right,
Talk soon.
All right, take care. Rest in peace, Neil Casal. Take care.
Yeah,
Later.
definitely.
Bye.
Bye.
Just another creative, Victoria Murdok, on the Jake Feinberg Show. I'm off to Oregon, Keezy country. We'll see you later.